was my father, right? People say, you can't question God. You can't do this and that. I can ask him anything I want in respect. That's my Heavenly Father. I absolutely can. And so can you. Don't listen to somebody say you can't ask him that. Hello. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time being here. We're going to talk about all lifestyle, anxiety, depression, fear, all the things that come with it. But you'll also get personality of who I really am, because those things don't define me, nor do they define you. So when coming up with today's topic or discussion, it was going to be talking about boundaries, because with anxiety or depression, or just life in general, but most definitely with those two, you have to establish boundaries. It's not an option. It's no way to really get through all of it if you don't establish boundaries for yourself, and you have to stick to them. But we're going to do it another time. I figure since I'm new here, you don't know me, I might as well start at my beginning so you can learn a little bit about me, and then we can move forward with the meat of everything else and move from there. Okay? So I may have had some form of anxiety prior to having my daughter, but it wasn't debilitating. It was nothing that I really noticed. To me, I was normal. I was young. I was living my best life. We went to cabarets on the weekends, every weekend, Saturdays and Sunday. If you don't know what a cabaret is and you're a little younger than I am, it's a club. It's a party. It was a vibe. It was all of that, right? And they were cheaper. But anyway, so I didn't think nothing about it. I felt fine, all that, right? But I always thought that I didn't want to have any children, because I think my mom is absolutely amazing. And looking at her do what she do, to me, appeared to be no effort. It was just, she wore all the hats and wore them well, and still do. And I was like, I cannot do that. So to avoid that, let's just not have any kids and keep living our best life. That was my solution to the problem. Control. We'll get back to that. Okay, so going forward, nevertheless, I met my husband. It happened. We had my daughter, and boom. Yeah. Now the pregnancy, other than the morning sickness that should have been called all day sickness, that was all fine. I didn't feel any kind of way during the pregnancy at all, other than the morning sickness that comes, right? But right after delivery, right after recovery, and I'm awake now, I'm alert, and all these things, I'm like, what just happened? Where do I go from here? How do I do this? So many things just came at one time. So having a C-section, I had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. And the whole time I was there, I never requested them to bring me my baby so I can bond with her. I knew I wasn't going to do breastfeeding, because tolerance, pain, we don't like that. Still don't. So I had already knew, okay, we're gonna feed the regular way. They tried to get me to do it. I was like, no, I thought about that already. No. But nevertheless, being in there 5 days, I never said, bring me my daughter, let me feed her, let me bond with her. Never did none of those things. The only time I sent for her was when, family was coming up, David, my mom, whoever was coming up, and I wanted to get her together so everyone can see her and meet her. Soon as they left, I would ring the bell for the nurse to come back and get her. And then I would sit in that room, just overthinking everything. How am I going to do this? And I wasn't even by myself once I get home, I had David, I had my mom, I had my family. But in my mind, I was just worrying about how am I going to do this? The very thing I didn't think I could do, how am I going to do this? So you see how the difference of reality and then your thought process and you worrying and being fearful about it. That's how it started right there. But the whole time in there, no nurse never said anything. They didn't find that weird or unusual. They never tested me to see, are you okay? Because most people want to hold their babies other than when people are here. And then when people are there, they're holding her most of the time. And one night, the nurse came in to give me my medicine or whatever. And she said, and I said, whose baby is that crying? Like, in my mind, I'm like, can y'all calm that baby down so I can go to sleep? Who's baby crying? And the nurse simply said, that would be yours. Would you like me to go get her for you? And I said, no, y'all can pet her and take care of her. I said, she's okay though, right? Like, she was like, yeah, she's just being fussy. She'll be okay. I said, okay. The whole time I was there, that was the process. That's what it was. And I didn't take the pain medication because it didn't work well with me. It was too strong, had me hallucinating. So I was like, we just going to wing this thing. But that's what kept me there long, because those who know who have a C-section, until you have a movement, you can't go home. But they didn't even tell me that. So I'm thinking, I'll just endure the pain, but in order to have a movement, you're going to have to not be in pain. So I took the medicine that once. But when I went home, I was like, I don't want that. Give me regular pain medicine. I don't want whatever that was that you were giving me. And so that was the beginning of the journey. Now, I never had thoughts of harming myself. I never had thoughts of harming my daughter. It was just the overwhelming of responsibility that came with having a child, someone that I'm totally responsible for. It wasn't that I wasn't financially able. I had my own apartment, all the things. And then another thing I'm thinking about, I had my goddaughter April for years, and I first came encounter with her at 2 weeks old, and I did it, and it was like, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was. I don't know if it's because the hormonal change didn't happen because I didn't birth her, or because I always knew in my mind that it was temporary. So I didn't get all of that. So I wasn't new to caring for a baby. So that made me wonder, what is going on? You're not new to this. You know what to do. But the responsibility of something that I couldn't control, I think that's what triggered it. I think still now, I think that's what triggered it, because I still have a control issue, right? And now learning that postpartum can actually last for 2 years. Are you kidding me? So now I have postpartum. I go home with my baby. And now I'm anxious, not knowing that that's what this was. So every time my chest would hurt, like just the pressure of it in the middle, palpitations, headaches, couldn't sleep, scared to go to sleep, so many things. I mean, when I say I probably went to every hospital just about in the DMV every week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they all kept saying, nothing's wrong with you. Go home, get some rest, you're fine, you're that. And I'm like, something is wrong with me. I don't even feel like myself. Something's wrong. No, you're fine. You just get some rest, take this Motrin for the pain, and you'll be fine. That went on for months and months and months. So I go home. Every time I get the discomfort in my chest, I take the Motrin. All that did was make me sleepy. So I wake up. The first thing I do when I open my eyes is like take a deep breath so I can see if that pain or pressure or discomfort was still in my chest. Lo and behold, still there, not gone. So I was off from work for like 5 months after I had my daughter. My husband was like, you take all the time you need, just, no hurry to go back. I can handle everything, just. So that definitely helped me try to figure out what was going on. Things continued to just spiral more and more and more out of control because I'm new to this. I'm new to these emotions. No one I've talked to knows what's going on with me. Nobody I'm close to can relate to what I'm saying. All these things. And it was so tragic because that pressure or that discomfort was there 24 hours a day. So imagine that uncomfortableness, which brought on more fear and the way I felt. Even doing that, still being a mom though, still washing my baby, still feeding my baby, still doing all the things I'm supposed to do. But every day David left for work, I went over to my mom's house and was like, I don't need no one to watch her. I'm just here so that I can try and get some sleep, and then you can keep my eye on her if she wake up. But I didn't leave her there. I stayed with her. That went on for so long until it was time to go to work, and then life has to be the way it was. But before I get to that part, since no one knew what was wrong with me, and every day I had the same complaints over and over again. Of course I wasn't myself. I was scared, not knowing what's wrong with me. So that would make me not eat like I'm supposed to. Just all the things that can happen when you're trying to figure it out or you're afraid. One day I was laying in my mom and dad's bed, and my friend, I considered her family at the time, she called and she was like, what are you doing? And we used to rip and run all the time. We did not keep still. If it was church on Sunday, we were there. If my pastor was preaching out somewhere else, we were there. Shopping, going out to dinner, we were busy, okay? And we were prepared to bring Jordan along. It wasn't going to stop anything, right? But one day she called and I was laying in bed in my mom's house, and she said, what are you doing? You want to go here? And I was like, no, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't feel like it. And she was like, what's wrong? At first I was like, I don't know, nothing. She was like, what's wrong with you? And I described my symptoms and what I was thinking and how I felt. And she was like, oh my God, I know what's wrong with you. She was like, put some clothes on and I'm going to come over and we're going to go for a ride. And I was like, what is she talking about? I've been to every hospital. How could you possibly know what's wrong with me? What she told me to do, because at this point, what do you got to lose but your mind? So I got dressed and everything. She came and got me. We went for a ride, and she asked me more about how I was feeling, how long I've been feeling this way. Do you do this? Do you do that? And I'm like, yes. Like, how do you know? And she was like, I had that too. And it was when she was going through an experience in her life. Nevertheless, whatever that was, when she was going through an experience in her life, she went through all of this. She was like, I used to sit up in my chair because I didn't want to go to sleep. I was scared to go to sleep because I thought if I go to sleep, I would die. All of the things. And even for myself, I would wake up some days and be like, yeah, this seemed like today is going to be the day that I probably not make it. Who wakes up and feels that way? Literally believe that that's a reality based upon how you feel, based upon how long you've been feeling that way, based upon no one knowing what's wrong with you, and you know something's wrong with you. That's what I went through over and over and over, day after day after day. And then it got to a point where I believe I became a nuisance. That's how I felt. This is my truth, right? If I tell you guys this is your safe space, this is my safe space too. So I felt like I had become a nuisance to my sister, to David, to anybody, because now they all have to hear this every day and take on this every day, and they keep telling me, well, do this and do that and do that. And I'm thinking in my mind, if I could, I would have done that. Clearly I cannot. And this is weird because they're used to me being strong. They're used to me being who I was prior to. And now here comes this new person, and they don't know what to do with her. They don't know how to communicate with her, and they don't know what to do for her. And so then that made me say, because I've never been one to force myself on anybody, still am. And so when I felt like I was getting on their nerves or becoming a bother, then I was like, I'm not going to say nothing. I just have to problem solve in my mind. Then I'll feel like I have a sense of control. I said, I'm not going to say nothing. I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it by myself. Yeah, that's what I ventured on to do. I just did my thing, right? No one knew how dark it was. No one knew the thoughts that I had about every day waking up. I feel like today is the day I may, it may happen today, every day. And then there was one point I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to pray. I'm not reading my Bible. I don't need nobody doing nothing for me, because I think at that point, then I was feeling a little angry with God. And I'm like, after all we've been through, how you just talk. This is my father, right? People say, you can't question God. You can't do this and that. I can ask him anything I want in respect. That's my Heavenly Father. I absolutely can. And so can you. Don't listen to somebody say you can't ask him that. So I think I was mad. I was like, all we've been through, and I've seen you at work in my life. I trusted you. I gave up this. I did that. All the things, all the things. I felt like, why have I been forsaken? The one thing I said I never wanted to do, you got me through the worst pregnancy ever to me, because that's how I felt. And now you're gone. You're not here. You're not answering me. Do you see me suffering? Do you see me crying? Do you hear me calling out to you? All the things. I hope I don't get emotional, y'all. But going down memory lane, it may do that sometime, and that's okay. But that's how I felt, like I was abandoned. And I didn't want to do anything with church, nothing. So she was like, you going this Sunday? No. I didn't play my gospel music anymore, and that was my life. I didn't play it anymore. I didn't sing it. I just sat in what I was in. And the enemy was whipping my behind. When I think a bad thought, I would try to think a positive thought to counteract that, because you take every thought captive, right? So if I thought something negative, I try to think of something to replace it, and just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But that's when I learned faith comes by hearing. The battle is in your mind. You will lose if you're going thought for thought. You have to hear what comes out of your mouth to believe what you're saying. Thinking it is not going to do it. But I went through so many years to learn that lesson. Faith comes by hearing, not thinking. So anyway, that's another form of manifestation. Speaking those things that are not as though they already are. When you do that and you believe it wholeheartedly, oh, it's happening. Whether it showed up or not, it's happening. But you have to say it. And so I learned that I couldn't win that battle in my mind. And the mind wouldn't quiet itself for nothing. It was always something going on in my mind. Talking, chatter, whispering, loud, quiet. It just wouldn't shut up. I just needed it to be quiet. So I didn't know how to quiet my mind because my nervous system was so worked up, and all I knew was fear. Scared that I'm going to fail as a mom. Scared that I'm going to not do a good job. Scared that I've bitten off more than I can chew. Scared that I may become a baby mama. Something I never wanted to be. And I'm not speaking against anybody who is, because nobody knows the future. That can happen to anybody. But for hope, I didn't want to be a baby mom. So now I feel like I have no control over if that happened. I have no control over if I'm going to be a good mom. We know they don't come with no instruction book. So all of these things just all day, all the time. So I went to church one Sunday, finally. finally. And I was sitting in my seat, and I tapped my cousin, and I told her, I said, I need my mind to be quiet. I couldn't even focus on what my pastor was talking about. It was just noise. Oh my gosh. Imagine somebody who never shuts up, even when you're asleep, even when you're awake. That's what it was. And I told her, I was like, I just need my mind to be quiet. I can't concentrate. She said, I'll be back. She went and got Minister Palmer for me, and she told me to come into the bathroom. And I go, and I left Jordan there with my goddaughter, April. And I said, April, keep an eye on Jordan. I'm going to the bathroom. We'll be right back, okay? And so she was like, okay, we'll get to that. So when I go there, the minister is there. She asks me what's wrong. I tell her what's going on, how I'm feeling. And I'm just crying, and I'm feeling how I feel. And she just prayed over me, and she whispered in my ear. And then she also told me, every day, I need you to read Psalm 40 every day. Every time you hear those thoughts, every time you feel overwhelmed, every time you think you cannot do this, I want you to read Psalm 40. When I say I lived Psalm 40, I did exactly what she told me to do every day. And even to this day, I still read Psalm 40. And that was the starting point of me getting back to what I knew before everything went awry, right? And so I did that. Of course, the symptoms don't go away immediately. Of course, you don't stop feeling like you feel immediately. None of that happens immediately. It's a process. It's a process. But like I said, it just kept growing and growing and growing. Then, okay, it just progresses. When you can't get to the root of something, whatever you don't process, it will process you if you don't process it. So that was that part of it. But then things that I normally weren't afraid to do, I became afraid to do. The littlest things. I don't want to go by myself. Can you go with me? Can you? Now you're just, I felt you're becoming a burden to everybody around you because you're pulling from them constantly. And then when I feel away, then I'm like, okay, I'll just do it by myself. Here we go again. I'll do it by myself. Because at this point, even though she told me I had anxiety, I was never diagnosed per se with it until I went back to the hospital again because I felt away there for hours with my mom. And we finally got in the back. Came out, he was like, there's nothing wrong with you. I've heard this, right? He said, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have anxiety. First time, after all this time, a doctor, he said, you have anxiety. And then he says, you need to meditate. You need to just meditate, calm your nerves, and relax, and that'll help. I know you lying. Did not work. So I go home. First of all, I didn't know how to meditate. So I thought, okay, so much to unpack. I say, I don't know how to meditate. Meditate on what? And then when I sit there and try to meditate, I'm distracted easily. Other stuff roaming through my mind. I need to do this. I could do that. I need to do this. I'm sleepy. I'm this. I'm that. All these things come into your mind when someone tells you to sit there and meditate. But sitting here today, oh, you knew how to meditate, Hope. You knew how to do it well. Why? Because you meditated on negativity. You meditated on what if I don't wake up? What if I can't be a good mom? You believe what the enemy told you. You're not going to succeed. You shouldn't have went through with having a baby. You're going to fail. You're not strong like you think you are. If I can consistently meditate on that lie, on those lies, every day, all day, easy. No effort, easy. You knew how to meditate. You just didn't know that you were meditating. Oh, you were meditating. You did it good. So knowing now what I did not know then, if you are able to meditate on the negative, What's wrong? What could go wrong? Worrying about tomorrow that you haven't even been given mercies for, but you're trying to tip over there anyway, instead of staying in the present. You absolutely know how to meditate. It's just on the wrong things. Think on these things of a good report is what I should have been meditating on, but I didn't know that, nor did I know how to do that. And when people say, take every thought captive, how do I take a thought captive? How do I do that? How do I do that? I didn't know how to do that. I now know you take every thought captive by not owning it, not allowing it to repeat itself over and over again when you know it's a lie. You ever talk to somebody and you knew they were lying when they said it, but somewhere deep down inside, you believed what they were saying. So therefore you believed the lie. You believed it. That's why you have to guard your heart and your mind. What you allow in your ear gates, what you watch, who you surround yourself with, all of those things play a part in how you fight the good fight of faith. It's not a coincidence. Faith without works is dead. You have to be intentional with things, intentional with my study time, intentional with my notes, intentional with talking to God, setting aside a time, intentional with your self-care, intentional in learning what God says about you. So when the enemy tries to come in, and he will, and tell you who you are, what you can and cannot do, that's what kept me so long from coming on this channel talking to you guys. You can't do that like them. You're going to be scared if you tell people this. If you do, who am I listening to? Was I listening to who God said I was? Who I already knew? But now you want to let somebody infiltrate your mind and tell you opposite of what you know is a lie? He watches us. He can't hear my prayers. Only God can hear my prayers. So it's not like he's eavesdropping. He's watching you from the time we got here. Not just today, from the time we got here. So he knows what tricks and schemes to do to get under your skin, or who to send to do that. Yeah. Like we learn and study the Word of God and learn about him and his characteristics and who he is, learn the enemy as well. Just like the army, you going into a battlefield and fight an enemy or adversary, but you don't learn how they fight. You absolutely study how they fight. So you have to learn the enemy so you can learn how to fight him as well with the Word of God and stand on it. One moment at a time. Any progress is progress. Any progress is progress. And I didn't want to make this video long, so I thought I would try to do it in phases of the experience. So we talked about postpartum when it showed up immediately after giving birth. We talked about going home with my baby, trying to navigate the whole thing, and then the postpartum just added with the anxiety, like a ton of bricks just fell on me. And then, like I told you in the last video, who was anxiety cousin? Depression. So they were together. So all three of these at the same time. All of them. So for anyone who comes and says you're weak because you have anxiety, oh baby, I'm strong because I'm still able to work, be a mom, be a wife, build a business, still do what you do, helping people, doing what you do, and still have joy. Still have joy, a sense of humor. No weapon formed against me nor you shall prosper. When you know, you know. All of the things. He's going to do what he do, but what are you going to do? Yeah, that's just part of the journey. We'll see what happens when now we've accepted we have anxiety. We have to learn about that because this is unfamiliar territory. We have to learn about anxiety. What is this? How do we get from here, and not necessarily back to who I was, but that's a better version of her. How do we get here? Seems like overnight since you got the answers now, Hope, right? This started 23 years ago. Yeah. So just because you're saved, just because you know Jesus for yourself, just because you know he has all power, does not mean that you won't be under attack. But when I sit here today and tell you that all things work together for good, even though I was afflicted, it works together for good, and I still wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. We could just start there. I told you guys I didn't know if it was going to be a part 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll get it there. But I just want to give you a background of who I am, how I realized I had it, how to work through it, and know that you are definitely capable and able, or it wouldn't have been allowed. It wouldn't have been allowed. No pity parties. Acknowledge where you are. You got this. You're not by yourself. I'm here. And so is God, most importantly. So I love you guys with the love of the Lord. I'm so happy that you came by. I hope that you like, comment, and subscribe. And know that everything, absolutely everything that you need is in your praise. Because you're going to have to praise your way through this. May have to do some other things too, but definitely praise. Okay? All right, so get started. It's early. You got time. See you in the next video. Love you. And I pray that God blesses you real good and have an amazing week. Thanks for watching.